From WIS Politics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everybody. This is Kate Morton with WIS Politics, here with the Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. Today, I'll be sharing an interview with Representative Jenna Jacobson. She is a Democrat from Oregon, and we spoke a little bit about her campaign for one of the most competitive Senate districts this fall, the 17th Senate District, currently represented by Senator Howard Marklein, a Republican from Spring Green. Here's what she had to say. All right. So thank you, Representative Jacobson, for joining me on the podcast today. You're running for what's going to be one of the most closely watched state Senate races this fall. So I think to get us started off, why did you decide to run for the 17th Senate District and try to unseat Howard Marklein?
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here today. So for me, the decision to run for state senate starts, first it starts with the fair maps that were signed into law in 2024, right? Previous to that, I was in a completely different Senate district, but I truly thought that under those new maps, we would see a more purple budget, purple behavior, I guess is the best way to put it, regarding some of the things that we were hoping, what my district specifically was hoping to see. So more school funding. And was really disappointed when that budget came out and there was no additional per student aid for schools. That meant 7 of the 10 school districts in my assembly district lost funding. And I just knew that wasn't sustainable, and that we needed to have a state senator that would reflect the values of the entire Senate district and deliver for all 3 assembly districts from Oregon all the way over to the Mississippi River. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah, so there are two other Dems running in this primary at this point. What makes you the best option for voters?
I think for me, it's the experience that I bring to the table, starting with my experience on the village board and then now in the state assembly, building coalitions of diverse groups of people who come around a common issue to solve those solutions, whether it's affordable housing or looking at how we're funding our different services. But building that coalition helps make better decisions across your community and your district. I think also the experience of running a campaign, I know what it takes to run and win in a district, and I bring that experience to the table as well as we take on this major seat flip.
Yeah, so if you were elected, what would your top priorities be to help voters in the 17th?
Yeah, so school funding is a huge issue in this district. We had the highest number of school referendums of any Senate district, and we continue to see we've had elementary schools close in this district. We had 10 referendums this past spring. So school funding is a number one issue, specifically as we look to our rural schools and making sure that they have the support that they need, because I feel like their challenges are unique compared to your suburban and urban schools, and how we're going to be supporting those rural schools moving forward. I would say so. And then that obviously pivots to property taxes and the affordability conversation that we've been having around the state. And we know that funding our schools directly affects our property taxes and housing affordability. And so making sure that the state is doing its part, not just in school funding, but in tackling those everyday issues. So property taxes, what have we been doing for around healthcare? That's another huge issue in this district. We have multiple hospitals and clinics, and people want to make sure that they can get healthcare in their communities. But if we're not supporting our healthcare systems and making sure people have access to affordable healthcare in their communities, they're not going to be able to get that healthcare where they need it, and they're going to have to travel longer distances and make it more complicated and less affordable for them.
Sure. Yeah, you mentioned both the property tax and the education issues. There's been a lot of talk about that recently with this $1.8 billion surplus deal with Governor Evers and GOP leaders that failed. You and Senator Marklein both voted in support of that. So why did you vote in support of that deal?
So for me, the biggest reason was there was a school district in my community that had gone to referendum, and the referendum didn't pass. And they announced shortly thereafter that they were going to have to lose 22 and a half positions because of that failed referendum. And I just kept thinking about the special ed funding specifically that was coming through this deal and how many positions that could potentially save or hold on to until we could get a better solution around education funding specifically. And for me, that, making sure we saved as many of those jobs as possible was paramount because what are people going to do while they wait for the state legislature to get their stuff together, right? I mean, if you lose your job, you're in a world of hurt. And so that was probably the biggest deciding factor for me.
Sure. Is that something you think you've seen an increase in the district? Is schools relying on these referendums or referendums failing?
So in my district, there's only one school that has had a failed referendum, one school district. But as with the trend around the state, you see more and more school districts, those margins of passage narrowing over time because frankly, people are they're spent. They've got so many other costs that are increasing everywhere. They're already paying their taxes. They're already paying money to Madison. They expect that money to be coming back to help their schools and help their communities. And I think there is frustration with the fact that that isn't happening, and frustration with the idea that we're already paying taxes and that's not coming back to our school districts. But now I'm being asked to increase my own taxes when we're already spending that money. So I would say that that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you see as some of the best solutions to kind of boost education? Is it just more funding or how do you see it?
I I mean, I think funding helps, but I don't think that's the only thing by any means. I've been a big proponent of increasing the special education funding as kind of a stopgap measure while we really take a deep dive into education funding and look at what our communities need. I know we had the Blue Ribbon Commission on education funding in, I think it was 2017 or 2019. Um, I forget the year, but I think a lot has changed since we had that Blue Ribbon Commission. So I think it's important that we take the time to do that deep dive and make sure that whatever we're doing around school funding is truly going to address the needs that we're seeing in our different communities.
Sure. So another thing I wanted to ask you about, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but Jobs First Coalition has put out some digital ads and a mailer kind of associating Senator Marklein with Governor Evers and touting bills he supported that the governor has signed. I'm just wondering if you'd seen those and what do you think that says about the state of the race?
I think it says that he's scared because he votes with leadership the majority of the time. And I think now that he's representing a purple district, that is a valid concern of his.
Yeah, so what do you think about the chances in the fall? Do you think that Dems have a real path to make this happen in the Assembly this time around and in the Senate?
I always tell people when I ask this question that the path is there, but we have to work for it, right? Nothing is ever guaranteed, and if we're not getting out there and knocking on doors and talking to folks, then um, we can't expect to be given the opportunity to lead. So I know my colleagues and I have been talking a lot about the best ways to have those conversations, get out there and listen to folks, and make sure that we are doing the work so that if we're given that opportunity to lead next year, both in the Senate Assembly or even in a trifecta opportunity, that we are truly responding to the needs of Wisconsinites.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add for listeners about your campaign?
I would just say to visit jenniferwisconsin.com for more information. You'll see me out and about in the district quite a bit. I love getting out and driving around the beautiful Driftless area. So if you see me, stop by and say hello. I'm happy to talk.
All right, great. Thank you for coming on the podcast with us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, if you would like to learn more about the upcoming races this fall, you can head to our website at wispolitics.com. For now, I'm Kate Morton. Thanks for tuning in to WIS Politics Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.